On our anniversary, my husband and mother-in-law gave me divorce papers as my gift. 2 days later, they begged me for help when every single one of their credit cards declined. Hi, I'm Claire. But before I tell you how it all began, let me know from which country you're watching from in the comments. For 9 years, I believed I had built a marriage worth fighting for. I married Ethan when I was 26, and at first he seemed like the perfect partner. He was charming, ambitious, and made me feel like I was the most important person in the room. But there was always a shadow lurking around us. His mother, Vivian. From the very first day I met her, she sized me up like I was a stain on her expensive rug. Vivian came from old money. Her family had a name in the city, businesses that dated back generations, and a reputation for keeping their circle small and pure. In her eyes, I was never good enough for Ethan. I wasn't wealthy, I didn't come from a prestigious family, and worst of all, I had the audacity to be independent. I worked my way through college, built a career in finance, and managed my money better than Ethan ever did. I thought that would make her respect me. Instead, it only made her despise me more. For years, I tried to be patient. I endured her snide comments at dinner parties, her backhanded compliments about my looks, and her constant reminders that Ethan could do better. But I loved him, or at least the version of him I thought I knew. I told myself that if I just kept the peace, eventually she'd soften. She never did. Instead, she tightened her grip on Ethan, and slowly I started to notice him change. At first, it was small things. He would take her side in arguments without even hearing mine. He began dismissing my contributions to the household, despite the fact that I was the one paying off our mortgage faster than scheduled. Then it turned into bigger things. Vacations I wasn't invited to, family decisions made without me, and eventually Ethan acting like my money was his money while his salary vanished into investments I was never told about. So I kept trying. I told myself love was compromise, that marriages go through phases. But deep down I felt the ground shifting beneath me. And then came our 9th wedding anniversary. I had planned something special. I booked a quiet weekend at a cabin just outside the city, something cozy and intimate, away from Vivian's ever-watchful eyes. Ethan agreed, or at least he pretended to. But when the day came, he told me his mother wanted to celebrate with us, and he insisted we go to her house for dinner instead. I should have known. I should have listened to my gut when the pit of dread settled in my stomach. But I went telling myself maybe she wanted to make peace. Maybe she wanted to finally accept me. We sat at her long mahogany dining table, the smell of expensive wine and roasted lamb filling the air. Vivian was unusually quiet, a small smirk playing at her lips, like a cat about to play with its prey. And then Ethan stood up, cleared his throat, and handed me a manila envelope. "Happy anniversary, Claire," he said as if he were handing me flowers. I opened it and my heart plummeted. Divorce papers. Signed. Filed. All that was left was my signature. And beside him, Vivian let out a laugh so sharp it could have cut glass. "Don't look so shocked," she said. "Surely you knew you weren't going to last." I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. My hands shook as I clutched the papers, my wedding ring suddenly heavy on my finger. I wanted to scream, to throw the wine in her smug face, to demand Ethan explain himself. But all I did was stand up quietly and walk out. They thought they had humiliated me, crushed me into silence. But what they didn't know, what they could never have guessed, was that I had been preparing for this moment all along. You see, years of being underestimated by Vivian had taught me something valuable. Never let your guard down. She always bragged about how much wealth her family had, but behind the facade, their businesses were crumbling. I knew because I had access to the numbers. Ethan foolishly had asked me to help with some of his accounts years earlier, and I kept copies of everything. I knew their debts, their risky investments, and how much they depended on my steady salary and financial planning to keep their lifestyle afloat. So while Vivian spent nearly a decade sneering at me, I was making sure I had control over every string holding their world together. Our house. In my name. The joint accounts. Structured so that without me he'd have nothing. Credit cards. Tied to the accounts I funded. And their precious investments. Ethan had transferred half of them into joint holdings without realizing I could freeze them whenever I pleased. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. I played the dutiful wife on the outside while quietly protecting myself. Because deep down I knew one day Ethan and his mother would push me too far. After I walked out that night, I drove to the cabin I had booked, the one that was supposed to be our anniversary getaway. Alone, I poured myself a glass of wine, stared at the divorce papers and laughed. For the first time in years I didn't feel powerless. I felt free. The next morning I called my lawyer. Not the one Ethan recommended years ago, but the one I had quietly hired months earlier. We went through every detail, every account, every asset. By the time we were done, Ethan and Vivian had nothing left to stand on. I pulled my salary, froze the accounts, and redirected the investments. I even changed the locks on the house since it was mine alone. 2 days later, just as I was sipping coffee in my sunlit kitchen, my phone rang. It was Ethan. His voice was panicked. "Claire, something's wrong. My cards, they're all declining. Mom's too. The bank says the accounts are frozen. What's happening?" I smiled, sipping slowly before answering. "Oh, that's strange. Maybe you should ask your lawyer. After all, you gave me my anniversary gift early." The silence on the other end was delicious. By the end of that week, their world had unraveled. Vivian called me personally, her voice trembling with rage and desperation. She demanded I fix it, that I release the accounts, that I stop being spiteful. I reminded her sweetly that she had declared me unwanted. And unwanted women don't carry the financial burdens of the people who discarded them. Ethan tried everything: apologies, promises, even threats. He showed up at the house once, banging on the door, demanding I let him in. I didn't even bother opening it. I just called security and watched him storm away, humiliated. Meanwhile, I thrived. I moved forward with my life, kept the house, kept my savings, and let them drown in the mess they had created. Their reputation in society crumbled as word got out. The mighty Vivian, who once looked down on me, was suddenly exposed as financially reckless. Ethan, once the golden boy, became just another failed man with no money, no wife, and no future. The sweetest part? I didn't even need to destroy them with lies or schemes. I simply stopped carrying them. I removed the support they didn't even realize came entirely from me. They thought I was weak, but all along I was the one holding their empire together. Looking back now, I almost want to thank them for handing me those divorce papers. They thought they were ending my life. In reality, they handed me the chance to begin again without their chains. And every time I hear whispers about how Vivian lost her standing, or how Ethan is scrambling for work, I smile. Because nothing tastes better than revenge served quietly with dignity and a little bit of irony. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Sweet Revenge Unfolded for more. And remember, new episodes drop every single day.